and I was going to say good evening to everyone and welcome, but actually, in the US, it's still morning. So my name is Leslie Price. I work at a charity called Learn Appeal, and today I'm absolutely delighted to have my friend and colleague Lisa Goldstein on with us to co-host. I go back a long, long way. We actually started up a service called L&D Global Events many years ago, and we used to be in absolute, almost daily contact, and it was a great thing that we did, but it just took too much time. And then now today as well, we've got Brent Schlenker with us, who is also a friend of both Lisa and I, and very well known in the e-learning community. The wonderful thing too is Brent is a big supporter of Learn Appeal, and he actually has a capsule. So everybody, welcome to eLearnChat, where you're always going to learn something new, because learning is knowledge. And hi everyone again, and good morning, Brent. It's fantastic to have you on the show with Lisa and I. As I was saying in chat before the show, you are now the man in the middle. And there is a song somewhere. I'll have to look it up, but there is a song somewhere.
But is it really about a guy on a live stream with a girl on either side doing an interview thing? I'll bet it's different.
It's kind of like...
I'm afraid it's kind of like that, Brent.
That's okay.
Brent and I were just chatting. And Brent and I were just chatting just last week on the IDIODC show.
Exactly. Yes, boy. We do the live streaming thing is getting quite popular. So lots and lots of shows ramping up all over the place. But I got to say, Rick has always done it the best, I must say. Out of everything I've seen, he's been doing it the longest and has the fanciest stuff. I got to get me an intro like that. That is pretty awesome.
Well, Brent, I mean, the other thing I was telling Lisa before we started on the show is that you actually came over to the UK when you were with Litmus to support Learn Appeal, and you did stand duty. And believe it or not, this year, Rick and his wife, Leslie, came over again at their own expense, and they did stand duty on the Learn Appeal stand. So you are now in good company. Now we've just got to get Lisa over. Hey.
I'm in.
There you go.
Let's make this thing happen.
There you go. Learning Technologies 2020. We'll get Lisa in the booth.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. Anyway, Brent, so what can you tell us about what you're doing now at dominKnow?
Yeah, well, I'm actually doing a lot of different things, but dominKnow is the main one, the company that I'm working with, and I'm listed as their community manager. But there's, of course, it's a small company, a Canadian company, an authoring tool. Started off as a learning content management system, but it's become much, much more than that. And they actually just did a new release. So if anybody's going to ATD and wants to check us out at the booth, the new product is very, very, very cool. So I would highly encourage people to check it out if you're looking for something different, or if you're frustrated with your current tool set. To give it a try. And also, if you want to connect with me offline, I'm also showing people, giving demos and things like that. But it's like most of the jobs that I've had, working for them gives me an opportunity to talk with a lot of folks in the industry and find out what's going on and really be connected and have my sort of finger on the pulse of what training departments are needing these days, what they're developing, what they're trying to develop, some of the problems they're trying to solve. And that's really been, I think, I don't know, the funnest part of my career to this point is just, being a part of a large industry and a community of professionals that really love what they do, that are really passionate, and continuing to help that community grow and to get better, and to build communities around that.
And Brent, a great transition there too is that Domino does a great job meeting the needs of modern learners. Domino Flow is a tool that Nielsen has used to help meet a mobile workforce. Domino Flow has some of the industry's best mobile learning experiences. And as you're working with Domino and as you're continuing to engage in the community, where do you find some of your biggest passions around meeting the needs of modern learners, whether it's through the technology or approaches? Because I know that you are definitely somebody who embraces the fact that learning is more than just chocolate and vanilla these days. It's more than just e-learning and live chat. It's so many things. So what are you especially passionate about lately?
I think for me, the interesting thing is that it's all of it. And I know it might sound like kind of a cop-out, but I've been starting to approach a lot of my conversations around the idea of the learning technology stack, right? Like if you talk to any IT professionals, they talk a lot about the IT stack, and the different levels of enterprise software that supports the infrastructure of the business, and the email and the enterprise resource tools and all of that. And the more tools that we get, and the more technology that businesses get connected with, and the more opportunities really we have to work with different types of technologies, it starts to become very obvious to me that there isn't just sort of one tool to rule them all. It's all the tools become an opportunity for us as creative instructional designers to deliver learning in different contexts through different platforms. And that could even mean email. I think something as silly as we take it for granted. We think everybody hates it. We think people don't use email anymore. We think people want less email. But the reality is that people still live in their inbox. They've learned how to manage their inbox, and it is a great way for us to communicate with our learners. So if they're there, why not deliver them some learning opportunities, or some marketing about learning opportunities, or a small learning opportunity that leads to a bigger opportunity, right? I think my biggest passion is just around helping people see that when they get sort of a tunnel vision on, I need this kind of tool, or I need this kind of technology, that if you step back and just say, okay, what are you trying to solve? And let's look at all the technology that currently exists within the company. How can we use that to just kind of get started until we can pick a specific tool for you, and until you need to start developing, some really fully interactive, mobile-ready, fully responsive courses with a tool like Domino, or maybe you need an LMS, and you need either a big enterprise strength LMS, or maybe a small, more nimble-sized LMS. Let's just look at some of the other areas where you could be delivering value to the business, and see if there's something that we can be doing there before you start going and wanting to spend a lot of money and focus on all this other stuff. And there's always something that you can be doing that I think people miss, and it's all the free stuff.
Brent, I think about you as...
Sorry, Lisa, can I interrupt there? Because one of the things that I've learned over the years is that a key skill, if you're working in an organization or a business, is actually what I used to call floor walking. So rather than email somebody who is sitting 2 or 3 desks down from you, or emailing somebody who is in the IT department who would maybe be at the other end of the building or the floor below you, for goodness sake, get on your feet and floor walk. Talk to people. It's actually, I know it sounds really
Yeah.
old-fashioned, and I can see you laughing now, but that to me, you were talking about connecting with people. Unless you know how to speak with people in person, how on earth do you know how to communicate with them effectively online?
And Leslie, I think a little bit of Brent, sort of like the Seinfeld of learning. And what I mean by that is Seinfeld is an observational comedian. He looks at his environment, and that's where he gets his best work. And I think that's what Brent does. When Brent talks, when I hear Brent talk at events and conferences, he spoke actually at a private conference for Nielsen and made this fantastic point that while we keep trying to push some technologies like VR and AR, which definitely have their place, don't get me wrong, he makes this point that when you observe the environment, you know, in one's real life, so to speak, what technologies are becoming, you know, most common? And he uses the great example of voice technologies, and I love that. You know, thinking about when we learn outside of work, what do we do? And Brent does such a great job, and maybe Brent, you can speak more to this, but does such a great job to observing and making those connections that I feel like others aren't immediately seeing. And Brent, I don't know if you can talk to that about, you know, what is that about you, you know,
Yeah.
and what else are you seeing lately that, you know, in the real world that's inspiring you?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, and there is, you know, and it all does inspire me, and I don't know really why I started doing that. I don't really. I think for me, it comes out of this the experiences that I've had in the past of always being in departments that never had any money, right? And everybody's complaining about, don't have any money for this. We can't buy this. We would love to buy this. And we won't buy that. And it always felt like excuses to me. And I think that's really what ended up driving me a lot was, why do we just sit around and complain about the things that we don't have? And why don't we start focusing on the things that we do have and figuring out how we can leverage them most effectively and come up with some creative solutions that way and figure out what we can do. So, I mean, I think that's kind of where that was born out of in looking at it. But then even when we started to get more tech, this was even before we had all the tech we have today. But now, since we started getting more tech and more tech and more tech, and we've got so many options, now to me, it's more like, okay, you've probably spent a lot of money on a lot of cool stuff that's just collecting dust that you're not using. Let's step back and let's take an inventory of what are all the cool tools that exist right now that you may not even know exist. Some of them are things like just enterprise social media tools, right? Like as much as we like to beat up on SharePoint, hey, it's a tool, and you know it's gotten better over the years, and there are things you can do with it, right? And there's Slack and Yammer and all of these other tools that people have at their disposal that, to your point, kind of about my point, you know, people are using these tools in their daily lives, right? And I think a lot of this too comes from me having kids, right? And watching my kids and scratching my head and going, everybody tells me these kids are really smart and they know technology. And I started realizing, you know, just because they know how to Snapchat or Instagram and take a picture and share with their friends doesn't necessarily mean they're really all that tech savvy, right? They know how to do the things that teenagers do, but I think people start to go, oh, they're so tech savvy because they do all that stuff. And it's like, no, not really. You know, my first experience of that was guest speaking at Arizona State University in a business class. And I remember asking a couple really pointed questions about, and this was a few years back, so, and I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it was social media stuff. How many of you have an account? This kind. How many of you use this tool? How many of you use this? How many of you manage your day with this? You know, and just like basic, like what we would think of as totally basic tools for business skills and managing your life and why tech is so awesome. No hands went up. But if I said, how many of you have an Instagram account? Yeah, all the hands go up, right? You know, how many of you send messages to your friends on, you know, private, you know, WhatsApp and all that kind of stuff? All the hands go up, right? everybody knows how to communicate with each other. Everybody knows how to connect with each other. And they don't care about all this other stuff. So that was also a trigger for me to start realizing and to think more about communities, right? And this idea that at the end of the day, where there's hundreds and hundreds of social media tools and all this technology, but what's the one thing that they all have in common and that they are all leveraging? And that is the ability to bring people together, to connect, and to communicate. It's an inner human desire that we all have to connect with other human beings. And in my opinion, it is the number one benefit that technology has given us. I know we complain about Twitter and we complain about all the griping going on social media and people get angry and people being mad at each and whatever. But at the end of the day, just the mere fact that all of these tools and all of these technologies and mobile devices allow us to be connected with other human beings is an incredibly amazing, powerful thing that I think we've gotten to the point now where it's lost its. I'm still fascinated with it every day. I pick up my iPhone every day and I still look at it and go, this is just freaking magic. What the hell? This tiny, thin piece of glass and metal allows me to connect with the entire world. What? You know, and it's
Yeah,
like,
but the other thing, Brent. Yeah, but the other thing, Brent, is, so say I wanted to look up something on the internet. I know how to identify what I would call reliable sources. I know when something is misinformation. And, you know, if you go onto Google and search for something, you go, you know, you want to fix your car. You want to fix the guttering around your house. Very basic things, nothing to do with work. Oh, what'll I do? I'll Google it. And how many times do you get misinformation? How many times on Twitter, on Facebook, on all of the groups, do you get misinformation? So how do we, and as when I was a child, it was Encyclopedia Britannica. If you wanted to know anything, you went to the school library. You knew that the book that you referred to was absolutely correct. It was bona fide. But now we've got so many sources of information. How do we teach people about these information skills that you're talking about it now? There's so many ways to connect. How do you know when it's real and when it's rubbish?
It's a great question, and my answer to that is always the same, and it started back in the early days of wikis. Everybody remember wikis? Like Wikipedia is still a touted source for things, right? So back when that was first a tool, I was all in on wikis. I thought this was the most amazing technology ever, and all companies should have an internal wiki, and we should use it. And I got so much pushback from consulting clients, from presentations at conferences, instructional designers, other learning people, other business people, and the number one complaint was always, this is great, but what if somebody puts in the wrong information? Because my whole thesis was, this is great because everybody gets to participate. It's a collective, and everybody gets to jump in and add content and adjust content and change content on the fly, real time, right? And everybody else then gets to see it happen and see it grow, right? And but that was always the fear, the same fear, the misinformation. Oh my gosh, what if somebody puts in something wrong? And the reality is this: to me, that question always came from upper management, upper senior management, upper, folks that have always been sheltered from the realities, right? And so if you've ever worked in a manufacturing facility, if you've ever worked in any sort of lower level, dare I say, blue collar environment, right? There is nothing but misinformation being talked about. Nobody reads the documentation that the senior execs have checked off and said, yes, this is the proper procedure for going through and building this thing. They all figure out new processes that are better, cheaper, more efficient. It's just that it never gets cycled back up to the top. And so people are saying the wrong things. The documentation and the paperwork currently in the current system is wrong, is always wrong. If you were to audit somebody's documentation within their system of of any sort of system of record that has a gatekeeper and a whole bunch of committees that have to approve the changes and all that, you would find that there was nothing that ever matched. Everything was different than the reality of the actual work getting done. So this was 10, 15 years ago when all of this stuff first started changing, right? But so when we look at today and the flood of information and all of the technology, this is why communities and being human and being connected with other people directly, like we're being right now, is so much more important than it ever was, because you can't even trust Google anymore. And it's not that the information is disinformation a lot of the time. Sometimes it is, you're right. But for me, it's more of a frustration of they decide what it is they want to put in front of me. And most of the time it's ads that's close enough to the search that I made. It's not exactly what I want like it used to be. Like Google used to be really good at, I would type something in, boom, I would get something that was like solved my problem, answered my question, whatever. Now I get a string of ads. I get, blog posts that are just kind of close to what I was doing, it's not good. And so now more than ever, this is where we build our professional networks. We find those trusted sources now, not in the technology, but in the other human beings. And so this is why I value live streaming, why I value communities, why I value my peers and my colleagues, and I encourage other networks of friends that I have to find their tribe, find whoever it is that the people that enjoy doing what you do, and find those trusted sources within those communities and use them. Yeah. I rarely Google things anymore, to be perfectly honest. It used to be Google first, then go to my connections second. Now it's always just ping my friend. I have an Android question. I got an Android guy that I know is like, he's so passionate about Android. I ping him. I got an iPhone question. Somebody else I go to, or some other online source. I've got a how to fix my car question. I got a handful of guys that I know that are total car guys that can get me an answer that I know is spot on faster than Google can even get it to me. So it's just, for me, the technology allows us to scale up humanity and the people to people connections. The technology, I think, in my opinion, should become transparent, and we shouldn't be so worried about it anymore, and we shouldn't really be blaming the technology and all of that. We should just be utilizing it to connect with other human beings.
And on the topic of misinformation within communities, I love how there's the ability to now comment on comments. Like, for example, someone leaves a review on Amazon and says, my whatever electronic device didn't work. And now people comment on those comments and say, well, did you try, doing X, Y, and Z steps? And that allows, the original commenter to reply, oh, user error, thank you. I just needed that tip. So those communities are so valuable now because it's not just, one-way stream of information. Now it's within these communities, people are helping each other, which then, of course, helps anyone else reading those reviews.
Yeah, but
it's almost like, I'm going to go back. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt there,
okay.
Brent. It's almost going back to like the olden days. So if I'm a wee bit older than both of you, but in the olden days, if you wanted to know something, you went to the person in that community, whether it be your street or you met them in the corner shop, or in Glasgow, you met them in the back court, and you asked them because they knew what was going on. They almost made it their business to be, nowadays we would call them a community leader in technology. They would be the one with the however many thousand Twitter followers or how many thousand Facebook followers. But it's almost like it's working out within the community who are the trusted sources. And that then brings back to you being with Domino, being the community director, because you are obviously the trusted source.
Well, I try to be, right, and that's the interesting part, and trying to share with as many people as I can, just sort of the things that I know and the things that I'm passionate about, and what I'm connected to there. But I don't want to let the shared community thing go by without adding one final comment to it. I don't think I finished my whole analogy there fully, because the part that I would always tell people that back in that early days of all the internet changing and these early wikis is that the community does come together and correct those things. So if you have just a few people that are the ones that are in control, that have the ability to make the changes, you have a much higher chance of a misinformation and bad data staying a lot longer inside of documentation or inside of something official than you do if you have a scaled up an entire organization where everybody has the ability to edit it and to change it. Because as soon as one person goes in and puts in the bad or the wrong information, somebody else is going to be empowered to go in and say, no, that's wrong. That's not how we do it. And then they'll go in and change it. And if the other person goes back in and says, no, you're wrong, we'll change it. And then you go back and forth until somebody says, hey, this sounds like something that we need to get an engineer on, and we need to get a final answer, because obviously you guys don't agree on this, and this could be an issue. So if at the very least it solves itself most of the time, but it also exposes things that we never had exposure to before within the businesses. And I think managers, and I think executives, and I think learning teams do themselves a disservice by not being fully engaged with the workforce in these digital environments. But also, this circles back around nicely to your point, Leslie, in person, right? Getting up and walking around and engaging yourself. And my favorite stories when I've talked to people or I've interviewed them on live streams on my shows or somebody else's shows is when people say, I moved my desk down to the manufacturing floor. Or when I first got hired, they put me in a desk with the training department up on the third floor corner office, and I had my own thing. But I told them, I said, no, for the first 6 weeks, I want my desk down in manufacturing, because I need to learn that and I need to train those folks. Right? I mean, and that to me is legit. And I think we all need to be doing that, because you're in the mix. If you're going to be the trainer or be responsible for that training, you should embed yourself right in the people doing the work and get that human element going. And the tech, to circle it back around to that, just allows us to scale up. I love the fact that, Leslie, you and I can be friends, and you're in the UK, and I have so many good friends in the UK now, and I have friends in Australia, and I have friends in New Zealand, and all because of this fantastic technology that we get to take advantage of in our industry. And it just, to me, I'm amazed by it every single day.
And what's lovely is that the friendships develop to such an extent that you and I have actually, we chose to meet in real life. Yeah. It's like Rick and Leslie Zanotti chose to come to the UK. And I think if you've got an honest relationship online, you actually think, oh, this gives me the impetus. I really want to meet this person. And that applies if it's even somebody in a neighboring town to you or neighboring city to you in the US. I mean, how many people live on, US is a big, big, big country. how many people know folk, deal with folk in California, but they actually live in New York, and although they live in the same country, they've never actually met.
Yeah. Well, think
Wonder if
about
you
some of the
feel the
hottest
same.
topics right now in leadership development and in thought leadership guru-ness, right? Like the two big words that I see a lot on social media, I see a lot of keynotes talking about it, is empathy and trust, right? I mean, you got Brene Brown, you've got all of these really big names writing these big books on, what are they talking about? Are they talking about technology? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but they're talking about human stuff. They're talking about what it means to the real value and the real, the most important elements of what we do and how we utilize technology is it connecting with people, and the importance of building that sense of trust, and that comes over time. And if I only know somebody in the UK and I'm in the US and I don't have technology, I don't have anything at all, it becomes really hard for me to build a relationship, because you have to wait until each time one of you can get back and forth, even if it's a business relationship, even if it's once a month, it takes a long time. But with technology today, you can speed up that process, and you can decide who are the people that you trust, or that you want to trust, or that you feel comfortable around, or that you have empathy for, or you can learn from other people and realize, wow, I didn't realize that, when I was talking about this element of e-learning, there's this whole group of folks that also do e-learning, but they do it in a different way, and they do it for a different type of business, or in a different vertical. And so all the things that I'm saying make absolutely no sense to them, because they just do it differently, And so that's, to me, where it gets really interesting, when we start to look at all of the different things. And I think, Lisa, you may have heard me mention this a couple times, where I'm like, one of my sort of minor missions in our industry is just helping everybody get past the semantics and not be so cranky with each other. We do. I think we miss sometimes. In our conversations, we just barely miss each other when somebody says something snotty online, or somebody's snarky with somebody else. It's only because we're just barely missing each other, and we all come with different experiences. We all have different. We all play a different role in our industries. Some people are consultants. Some people work inside of companies. How that consultant thinks about one thing and how a manager of a training organization thinks about that exact same thing is totally different.
And you
different.
make such a great point,
they try to have a conversation, and all they do is butt heads.
And you make such a great point, because this is not just an issue in our industry, separate from the companies that we work for and engage with, but it's an issue internally as well. So within social media and communities, what advice, there's so much advice out there that we always talk about on technologies and helping to bring residency inside of social learning communities. What advice or tips would you give organizations who are trying to get what you're talking about just right, to make that culture just right inside of their social learning communities? What advice would you give organizations?
For me, that's an extremely hard question, because I rarely see it inside of an enterprise or inside of a business actually being done successfully. And more often than not, it's just simply because the business is built around a whole bunch of people dropped into a room that may or may not have anything in common at all, other than they both work for the same company. And trying to force those people to get along, and to talk about their dogs with each other, and to just really start to really trust each other and build relationships. I know we talk about that a lot, and we say how important it is, but I mean, come on. I mean, the reality is, not everybody likes everybody. Not everybody, jives with every other human being out there. And I seriously, we drop a jive instance into a big company, right? And go, yay, we're social. Yay, it's going to fix our culture. And it doesn't, because everybody's like, I'm not going to actually say what I really think on there, because the CEO's reading it, and HR is reading it, and legal's reading it, right? I mean, we all know that our email's being looked at by whatever company our company email addresses for. So everybody has 5 other email accounts that they use to do personal stuff, right? And they don't even talk using their business email unless it's like a sales call or to set up a meeting with somebody else. It just, becomes a dumping ground, The real community and the real connection happens in other systems, in other things. And so to me, currently, I kind of feel like the idea of the company and a business needs to change first, and that's the big giant disruption that's currently going on right now. Anyways, the gig economy, I think, is going to fix that. People that enjoy working together are just going to naturally start to create these teams of being able to solve problems and do projects together because they've already built that trust and they're connected, and they can do a lot of different things together, and they'll get out there and get the work done. But it's tough. It's really, really tough, I think, within businesses and within corporations to artificially do it. It's like we joke about icebreakers, right? It's like, oh God, please don't let me do another icebreaker before a meeting. It's just, that kind of stuff. When we artificially try to address human needs and trust and relation and artificially build relationships between people, it always fails. It never works out. And I don't know what the answer is. This is the thing, is that like I said, we try to drop in social media into businesses and make it work, and that's obviously failed miserably. So what's the answer? I don't know really what the answer is. I think acceptance is a good spot.
Well, Brent, I'm afraid we've kind of run out of time, but my
I
goodness,
talk a lot.
what a big challenge you have now given us, and you as a community director have now given us. Wow. How do we actually know the difference, and how do we achieve it? So we clearly are going to need you back on again, because
there's always more to talk about.
Anyway, I know we try and keep the time down now to about 30 minutes on the show. Possibly because we don't know with our viewers how long they're going to have, attention for longer than 30 minutes, because we're used to like 50-second, 30-second, 60-second, 5-second sound bites.
Yeah, I haven't gotten very good at shrinking down my sound bites. Sorry.
Oh no, it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on the show, and we'll have to meet up again in person soon. And Lisa, it's been brilliant to have you.
It is always a pleasure to hang out with both of you. Always a pleasure to hang out with both of you.
Anyway, Brent, I know that there will be, as Rick always says, and I need to put my finger somewhere at the bottom of the screen when they do all the different stuff.
Down there.
So there will be show notes, and there'll also be, YouTube, Facebook. So, people will be able to see, even if people haven't joined us, because, gosh, 10 o'clock in the morning is quite early. And certainly 6 o'clock in the UK is late, but we get people viewing from all over the world. So there will be loads of show notes and links for you to share, and it's just been fantastic. And again, eLearnChat, we talk to learn, and that's what we do. Thanks very much, guys.
Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye.